Honey is one of the most ancient natural foods in human history. A product so simple, so pure, that most people never question it. But behind the comforting golden colour and the familiar supermarket labels lies one of the most manipulated food categories in the UK. And today, we're looking at 5 honey brands you must avoid. Not because of rumours, not because of internet myths, but because the supply chains, the economics, and the laboratory indicators surrounding these products raise the very concerns food investigators have been warning about for years. And at the end of this video, I'll show you the fast, simple, at-home tests that reveal whether your jar is real honey or an industrial syrup dressed up as nature. Let's begin with a brand millions of households trust every single week. Number 1. Tesco Clear Honey. Tesco is the centre of the UK grocery world, a store people believe is held to the highest standards. So customers assume the honey on their shelves follows those standards too. But turn the bottle around. One line quietly reveals everything Tesco doesn't want you thinking too hard about. Blend of EU and non-EU honeys. That statement tells you absolutely nothing about where the honey came from, who produced it, or what conditions it was harvested under. It's the most vague, non-transparent origin label legally allowed. And here's where the problem starts. When lab tests were run on multiple supermarket honeys across the UK, samples of Tesco's Clear Honey repeatedly showed unusual sugar markers, chemical signatures that don't appear in natural honey but do show up when syrups like rice or corn derivatives are blended in. Tesco responded by saying the entire industry needs better testing, which is another way of saying our current checks are not enough to guarantee purity. Yet the product remains on shelves with the exact same label. Number 2. Asda. Pure. Honey. Asda built its identity on affordability. But when it comes to honey, affordability might be the first red flag, because real honey is expensive to produce. Beekeeping takes time, labour, and weather-dependent harvests. There's no shortcut nature allows. And Asda's honey, sitting at some of the lowest price points in the country, simply does not match the economic reality of genuine honey production. In independent tests, Asda's honey displayed the same suspicious chemical indicators associated with dilution and adulteration. The kinds of patterns investigators warn about when cheap syrups are blended to stretch out real honey. What makes this worse is that families buying discounted honey often believe they're making a smart financial choice. But you're not saving money if what's inside the jar isn't actually honey. You're buying a sugar product with a honey label. And that cost is far higher than the price printed on the shelf. Number 3. Sainsbury's Clear Honey. Sainsbury's positions itself as the mid-range, quality-conscious supermarket. So people assume their honey is a safer bet, a cleaner, more trustworthy alternative. But once again, the label tells a different story. No region, no beekeeper, no specific origin. Just the same generic phrase as the budget options. And when honey specialists tested Sainsbury's offerings, the product showed enzyme activity that didn't match raw, natural honey. The kind of profile typically seen when honey is heavily processed, ultra-filtered, or blended with non-bee sugars. And here's the uncomfortable truth. If a premium supermarket is selling honey with the same questionable indicators as discount chains, then price isn't protecting you. Brand reputation isn't protecting you. And quality positioning means nothing if the source isn't transparent. Number 4. Aldi Bramwell's Honey. Aldi has become famous for undercutting the market while promising no drop in quality. But honey is where that promise starts to fall apart. Because honey has one of the simplest, unbreakable economic laws in food production. If a jar of honey is cheaper than the cost of producing real honey, it cannot be real honey. And Aldi's prices are so low that beekeepers themselves say the numbers simply do not make sense. Real honey production costs several times more than what Aldi sells it for, even before storage, transport, packaging, and profit margins are considered. Investigators who examined budget honeys often highlight how perfectly clear, perfectly uniform, perfectly smooth they are. qualities real honey doesn't naturally maintain unless it's been excessively filtered, heated, or blended. And that kind of perfection is the biggest imperfection of all. Number 5. Gale's honey. For decades, Gale's has been one of the most recognisable honey brands in Britain. The warm colours, the nostalgic design, the promise of tradition, it all suggests a brand rooted in UK beekeeping heritage. But the label exposes a very different reality. Most jars no longer contain British honey. Instead, they contain blend of non-EU honeys. In other words, honey sourced from global supply chains where oversight varies dramatically, testing standards differ, and honey fraud is far more common. The branding looks British. The marketing feels British. But the honey itself has often travelled thousands of miles through blending facilities long before it reaches the UK. And in honey investigations over recent years, Gale's has repeatedly appeared alongside other blends questioned for inconsistencies in floral markers and pollen composition, the subtle fingerprints that real honey carries. A heritage brand selling heritage-themed packaging does not guarantee heritage-quality honey. It guarantees familiarity, not purity. Honey should be one of the simplest foods we buy. But the moment blending becomes part of the process, the moment transparency disappears, the moment economics don't line up with nature, that simplicity collapses. You're left with a jar that looks like honey, pours like honey, and tastes like honey, but may not be honey at all. In the next video, I'll break down the safest honey brands in the UK and the 3 quick at-home tests that instantly reveal whether your honey is authentic. For now, protect your kitchen, protect your wallet, and always defend your dinner.